Well, welcome to Tuesday at 7. We have Beth behind the camera who's going to keep an eye on the comments. And we are here today with Helen Welch.
Hello.
We appreciate you joining our community. And guys, we appreciate you joining too. In case you haven't seen all the kind of the promo that we've been talking about, the reason why we're meeting this week is because this Saturday, you are at Severance.
Yes, I am. Superstar, the songs, the stories, the Carpenters, Severance Music Center, Saturday, September the 7th at 7:30. Say that 5 times fast after a gin and tonic. I know. It's all the S's. And it was quite a surprise. About a year ago, I was in a restaurant and a gentleman followed me out of a restaurant and said, I'm from Severance Hall. And in my head, I didn't say it out loud. I said, yeah, and I'm the Queen of England. And he handed me a card, which I did look at once I was in the car. And he was from Severance Hall. And he wanted to book the show. But at the time, we were about to do it at Playhouse Square, which is called a champagne problem, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And so we had to put it on hold. And then they approached me in December of 2023 and said, could we book it for September 2024. So this Saturday, here it comes.
And we are going to be there. And I know that there's going to be a lot of folks from our community that are going to click in and grab tickets and join for the experience. We want to give folks just a little bit of time to come on, but this show, and I think probably others that you've done or described, I don't even know whether I had heard the term docu-musical. Yeah, tell us docu-musical, like what's behind that and how does it apply here to this show?
You know, and if any of the listeners can come up with an even better phrase, I'm all ears, because I'm not a fan of jukebox musicals and I'm not a fan of tribute shows. So I didn't want to, nor do I, try to dress or look or be Karen. I don't like that at all. But I do sound eerily like her. If people want to listen to me singing Superstar, for example, which is one of the songs, you know, it's of course the name of the show. It's kind of spooky, but I don't try to. So we wanted to, because tribute is kind of, the word has sort of got taken on a new meaning, right?
Agreed.
And it used to mean homage, right?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Homage,
yeah. So what we wanted to do was tell the stories behind the songs and sing the songs. But what we've done is, with my amazing world-class musicians, we have given the arrangements a little bit more of a contemporary makeover. Yeah. And so it's a beautiful celebration of 22 of the Carpenters songs with the stories tied to them, and then a little bit of cheeky British humor sewn in here and there.
Sprinkled in there, right?
Yeah, so it's a documentary, right? Because there's a little bit of the scene, and people comment all the time afterwards, oh my gosh, I love the stories. We don't focus on any of the negative stuff that everybody focuses on with the Carpenters. We focus on all the positive stuff and why the songs came about, how they picked them, you know, how Karen ended up singing, because of course everybody knows she was a drummer. And then, of course, there's the music. So it's a documentary and a musical, docu-musical. And I'm not sure I love it, but I can't think of another word.
Well, I'll tell you what, it describes it.
Okay.
It describes it. So we're going to be joining, and many of our community going to be joining for the docu-musical. Now, if you guys have never joined Tuesday at 7, we're just a Facebook group. And there's a group on the side, and there's a lot of stuff that we patter about, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on there. But it's just a time to gather on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And what we encourage our community to do is at the very bottom left-hand side of your screen, there's a share button. It's like a little arrow. And when you press that share button, Facebook will prompt you as to what to do next. It'll say, share. You share to a friend. You could share to your friends list. You could share it to a group. And when you share the interview, we know it. And next week, actually, we're going to do it Friday, not next week, but on Friday, we're going to draw a winner. And that winner is going to tell us, because the winner is going to
win 2 albums. So this is not available until Saturday at Severance Hall when we do the show. So this is Superstar, the Carpenters reimagined show soundtrack. The deluxe version. Many people have the original version, but we went back and recorded some new songs that people keep asking for that are in the show, but were not on the original album. So this is signed.
And she grabbed that Sharpie right before and signed it.
And that album is only available. So if you don't have a CD player, go out and buy one, because CDs are coming back just like vinyl are. People suddenly love something to hold, something to look at. They want to read about the artists and experience the album as a whole, which I think is because we spend hours deciding which song's going to come next to tell the story, you know what I mean? And when I was a little girl, I loved listening to the whole album, and that is coming back again. So this is only available if you come to a show or via my website, helenwelch.com. You can download individual tracks on all the normal platforms,
right.
But this is pretty special. And then this was up for a Grammy nomination. It's an album I think the guys and I are really, really proud of. It's called Spellbound, and it has tracks like our arrangements of The Windmills of Your Mind and I Put a Spell on You and Both Sides Now by Joni Mitchell and Jolene. And so that's the other one that's also signed.
So on Friday, we're going to collect all the names of everybody who shared it between now and Friday, and we're going to draw a winner. Okay. And one winner, so everybody gets the opportunity, if you shared, to grab one of these. Because the goal is to make sure that we get the story out, so people have the opportunity to see the show and hear the story and live at Severance this Saturday. But what we want to do is, before we jump in, head first for the next 20, 25 minutes, our last interview 2 weeks ago.
Oh, winner.
These are all the shares from 2 weeks ago. And the last two interviews, we've had more than 10,000 people watch these last two interviews.
Holy moly.
And that's because you guys are sharing. And that's the magic behind, I think what we're doing here is just pushing out information. But you're going to draw the winner. And this is for the Miscreants and the Muse, Sarah and Brian, their giveaway.
Okay. Did you write all these out?
I wrote them all out.
Wow.
LTP Arts.
LTP Arts.
LTP Arts.
That's your drum roll.
Thank you so much. She's an artist. And that's actually probably a perfect winner, because the Miscreant and the Muse is kind of a curiosity shop that is in Old Brooklyn, and they also a perfect place for artists to connect with as a consignment artist.
What did they win?
$25 gift certificate from the shop, and we appreciate Brian and Sarah you joining, and everybody who shared that interview, and we encourage you guys to share here today as well. One of the things that I always find interesting is I always like to ask. Obviously, right? Music is where you're at. Has it always been that? And if the answer is yes, from a very early age, was there multi-generational music while you were growing up? Your parents or grandparents?
Oh, yeah. So my dad was an older daddy, much older daddy. He was in the army for 22 years. He served in the Burma campaign and the whole of the Second World War. And then much later on met my mom, who's 20 years younger than him. And so he had us very late in life. He retrained as a computer programmer, but he was a very accomplished jazz and flamenco guitarist. And my mother was a light opera singer. So this is what you get when you cross those two things. So I definitely, so my mother has a recording of me at 2.5 singing I'm an Indian Too from Annie Get Your Gun. And, it was nothing to me to be singing all the time and playing the piano and listening to her. And then Dad would have me sit down on a Sunday and we would watch Gene Kelly, Judy Garland, Oscar Peterson, Doris Day, Fred Astaire, all those black and white musical movies. And he would also listen to jazz and Ella. So I had this whole mishmash of music Sadly for my mum, because I did start off more in the musical theatre camp, but as I got older, I kind of crossed over more into Dad's territory. He was a jazz. My mum does not like jazz. I loved jazz. So I kind of moved over into his side of the playing field a bit more. But I really think that beautiful mixture of music genres has served me really well, because I've taken some of those Broadway songs, and when you came to the concert last Sunday, given them a swing that nobody ever did. So it was great. I love them both for what they taught me. And yes, from the age of 3, my mum said, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" And I used to say, "I'm going to be a singer, Mummy." And you could see her rolling her eyes and thinking, "Oh, no, she's not." And oh, yes, I was.
Yeah. Born a child of the 60s, mid-60s-ish, right? We grew up with a lot of music, right? Yeah. And a lot of variety, and I remember it was the Doors and the Stones and Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. How could I forget,
Yeah.
And there were the Carpenters.
Yes.
Right? And whether we were, kind of rockers, like the Carpenters hold really important memories, I think, for any of us who grew up during that time.
Yeah.
Is that why you chose to go in that direction?
Well, you're going to get this story on Saturday, but I will give you a little heads up. When I wanted to learn to sing, the only singing training was classical singing. And it was Italian arias and "Caro mio bien," right? And I felt like a round peg in a square hole, and I thought I sounded like a strangled cat. So I pretty much did not want to go to singing lessons, and I was lost interest, and my mum didn't understand it because that's the only thing she knew. Yeah. But I would sneak into her bedroom, and I would borrow her Carpenters cassette tapes, because they were around when I was. So for me, my generation of music was the ABBA and Bay City Rollers, right? I was a little later on. But my mum played the Carpenters. So I would take the cassettes, listen to them in my bedroom, grab my hairbrush, turn on my little dressing table light, which was my follow spot, and sing along. And I remember thinking, I can do this. And I kind of sound a bit like her. And it's so interesting because when I researched the show, and I did hours of reading and research, Karen Carpenter didn't like singing either, because everything was in the wrong key and it was all too high. Same for me. It was so bizarre reading the story. And Richard wrote a song one day that happened to start on a particularly low note for a female voice. And they said, "We're too young." She sang it, and he said, "How came that sound?" And from then on, he knew what keys to write any song in to suit her voice. She went on to get great training, but she always said the money's in the basement. And for me, it's like a carbon copy. I didn't like singing this stuff. I loved singing this stuff, this Carpenters, this lower stuff. I did go on to get some very good singing training, but that has the money's in the basement for me too. So it's really interesting how many parallels there are in our musical training. And like you said, it was Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, and the Rolling Stones, and the Carpenters cut right through that, which is just amazing.
Yeah. And I know that there's folks out here that are probably even just making comments, and they're going, "Oh yeah, that those are moments that it almost like a time warp, right? We hear a Carpenter song, and 50 years, we're back to the 70s,
God,
and
isn't that scary? It's that
there.
long.
I know. It absolutely does that. Beth is shaking her head, but those of those you can't see.
Well, what's so interesting too is because we've been touring this show since 2017, it's gone through a bazillion rewrites, which it has to happen when you're producing a show. Eventually you get to a product and you put it out on stage, and then at the end of the show you go, "Okay, that worked, that didn't work," because you really can't. You can do as much as you can in a rehearsal situation, but it's not until you run it in front of a live audience that you really get to feel its pace. And what works, what doesn't work. But what's so interesting is as we travel around, there are in the audience, there'll suddenly be a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old. And my question is always, Why are you here? How do you know this music? Oh, my grandmother now. Yeah. My grandmother played it. And there's some really young fans that have T-shirts on with, my granny played the Carpenters. Or, I'm having a bad day. All I need to do is listen to Karen Carpenter. They bought me T-shirts. And then the last time we did Playhouse Square, which is March 2023, I walked out into the lobby to sign CDs and meet and greet. And there were 3 gorgeous sort of 17-year-old beautiful girls standing there. And I said, what are you doing here? And they said, oh my God, we love the show. And I said, did you know any of the songs? No, they said. But I said, so what, oh my gosh, and one came for lessons. What the quality of the melodies, we came out, every single one was phenomenal. And I think that's sort of what we're missing now. Or maybe that those songs are out there, but these young people don't get to hear that kind of music anymore. So when they hear the Carpenters, I think this young girl said was, the melodies are just so great. I can't pick between which one I love. And when I've produced many shows, and usually I'm scrabbling around for the last 4 or 5 songs, because you usually need about 22 songs. With the Carpenters, I had what I call a champagne problem. We had to medley songs. Yeah. Because I couldn't.
There's so many available.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many greats.
Spoiled for choice. Yeah. But what we did this year when we learned we were going to do Severance Hall was there were 2 songs we had not put on the album that are a little edgy, and we've done different arrangements of them. And so I got one of my students who was with me from 8 years old to 18, and now is doing very well at UCLA and runs the record company there and everything. So we're still in touch. And I called her and said, would you be my publicist for Hurting Each Other, which is a very rocky arrangement that we've done. Nice. So she did a visualizer for it. We released it on YouTube. And the idea was to see if we could reach, an even younger audience and say, hey, look, these songs are great. If it just packaged a little differently. So
yeah, I agree. For those of you who weren't here for the very beginning, we mentioned that if you share this interview, and sharing gets the word out, right? And that's the power of our community. But if you share this interview, we know it. And on Friday, prior to the show on Saturday, we're going to draw a name. And if your name is drawn, you get 2 signed CDs and one that's not even available until Saturday. And we appreciate your generous signatures and gifts out there. But we wanted to make sure that everybody knew that there was some incentive behind sharing. Talking about the love of jazz and loving to go out on stage, is there some improvisational aspects of your show, where you're reading the audience, you're kind of moving? I think I read also that your bandmates, maybe that's not the right word, it feels like family. We know, we just go, right? And you read each other and you move. What are your thoughts on that? The idea of or the question on improvisation?
Sort of 2 answers. So when one produces a show, you have to have certain boundaries because when you're in the theater like Severance Hall or Playhouse Square, there's a show time and the union staff, and you can't go beyond a certain time. They want to know the runtime. You've got lighting operators, sound engineers, so you have to be somewhat respectful. But having said that, and the songs are a particular form. So, for example, in the song "Rainy Days and Mondays," Charlie, our guitar player, has a guitar solo. He can do whatever he wants in that solo, but it has to end when it's supposed to end. And Joe, we do Jambalaya, this big sort of Cajun arrangement of Jambalaya. There's a guitar solo and a piano solo. Oh gosh, it's never the same twice. They can do whatever they like, but we just have an agreement on when it ends so that we don't train wreck. We do other shows like in jazz clubs. Then there's no format. Just feel the way we feel. And the same for me, if I'm singing, because in the show we include, the Carpenters had a lot of fans and other big named artists. And Leon Russell, big songwriter, wrote 2 very important album cuts for the Carpenters. Most people don't know this.
Know that.
Song for You. I've been so many places in my life and time. And Are We Really Happy with This Lonely Game We Play? Masquerade. Hugely loved song written for the Carpenters, for their albums. So we do those 2. I play the piano in Song for You, which is terrifying. And then Masquerade, again, I can sing it however I feel like I want to sing it. And because they are like my brothers, these people. I've been working with them for so long, and there's a lot of love on stage. People comment about that all the time too. They've got me, you know.
And we felt that.
Did you?
We felt that when we saw you just, a week or so ago.
Yeah.
We felt that it was natural. It was the movement, the feeling was spot on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a huge amount of respect, and I couldn't do it without them. And I say that in the show. You know, when you're the singer, you tend to get all the attention, and the buck stops with me. But I say to the audience, it takes a village to put a show on like this, and I couldn't have done it without them and all their ideas. And it's very democratic. Yeah.
Your delightful accent suggests that you are not born here in the States.
From Alabama.
Yes. I knew I had it wrong.
Yes. I was born in England, and I moved here in 2003 after meeting my husband. It's like a Hallmark movie. Don't tell me you've never seen a Hallmark movie.
I have. I'm just wondering when that Hallmark movie might be in process.
Girl meets. We always laugh about it. You know, single girl who can't find anybody to like her or love her because she's a singer, and people fall in love with the singer, and that's not who she is. She likes to play in the mud, and she's quite quiet and quite introverted. You know, single boy who went skiing. It's Hallmark, right? Single girl goes to the slopes too on her own to sing and ski and, you know, nurse her lonely heart. And single boy arrives from America too. And, you know, they fall in love on the ski slopes, but she goes back to London and he goes back to America. But then 10 weeks later, he arrives in London. And 10 weeks later, she comes to America. And we did that for about 2 years until we realized, this is it. And he came over and asked my dad for my hand in marriage. And my dad said, thank God for that. Thought she'd never go. And we've been married 21 years now or something.
Yeah, it does sound like a Hallmark story.
I know. And the funny thing was that we discovered that we'd been going to this hotel for a number of years, both of us. And Doug had a picture of when he'd met some Dutch girls. And I saw the picture. And I said, have you looked at that picture really carefully? Because I'm in the background. Yeah. So
that's a bit
I know.
unexpected.
I was watching him.
That's something.
Yeah. And so
well, we do have, I think, at least one Oscar nominated folks here in the thing. And so with our filmmakers, I mean, there might be a Hallmark movie in the making because it sounds pretty
it's a true story.
Pretty amazing. I mean, we've got some incredible talent here in Ohio and beyond. Yeah. But I believe that you are our first Grammy nominated guest. So take us there.
Well, it was up for a Grammy nomination. Okay. We lost out to Barbara Streisand as well.
If one must lose out.
Willie Nelson. Yes. And I learned a lot. It's a very expensive process. And not sure if it's really worth it, to be honest. Because you just can't compete with that.
Do you submit it for the nomination? Like,
yes.
How does
there's lots of there's a journey you have to go through. You have to be so long ago now. You have to be a member of the Grammy. I don't know what they call it. I can't think now. Yes. So you have to have recorded a certain amount of albums and all that. So I was already there. And so I vote. I still vote for the Grammys. So a Grammy time, there are like 50-something categories you can vote on. So, and there to choose from, and then you pick 23 or something. So I only pick the ones I feel qualified to listen to, right? Yeah. So I listen to, jazz solo voice. I listen to adult contemporary pop, which is what we were up for. I don't ever vote for the best pop album, Taylor Swift or something, I try and look at those sort of indie categories a bit more, but I don't vote for spoken word. I don't know anything about it. Yeah. I don't vote for classical piano, I don't know anything about it. So it's very interesting. And it's really interesting, too, that people are still sending out CDs. So it's starting already. I've had what they call FYCs, for your consideration. Nobody is allowed to ask for your vote. They are allowed to ask for your consideration.
They want to expose themselves.
Yes. Would you please consider me when you vote? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so they send me CDs in the mail, or they'll send me a postcard with a QR code on it to scan. And it's very cool. I get to listen to a lot of great stuff. And you realize how many bazillions of people are trying to get your vote. It's just like the presidential campaign, and you have to have 1,000 CDs printed and mail those out, or 2,000. I mean, start adding that up. Plus the mail, just to mail them out. And then, you spend it out. And it was very exciting. And that's actually how the Carpenters show got started, because it was 2000, and it was Spellbound. It was 2015, 16. And this publicist in California heard the album and called me and said, I've been on your website and I see you messing around with the Carpenters. That's not how he worded it. That's how I'm wording it. And we had been just sort of dallying with it, but it was so hard, such hard work, because to recreate the Carpenters songs would involve an orchestra. Richard was so well known for all his incredible arrangements, oboe, strings, you name it. You couldn't take that on the road. And so we were messing around with somebody playing the piano and somebody playing strings and oboes and flutes on a second keyboard. Yeah. Right. But as a musician, I don't like that. That's like trying to sound like somebody else, and it didn't work. Well, this publicist in Los Angeles said, you should look into this. You should do this, because you sound like what you're doing. I get what you're doing, and you should try and develop it. And so through the Grammys came Superstar, and we went back to the drawing board as a band and said, look, what are we great at? We're great at taking songs and making them fit our lineup. Let's do that. And that's what we did. And so
you arrange the music in your way, right? And then, how does the approval process work? In other words, to say, how do we take this out on the road? Oh,
I approached Richard.
So you went right.
I thought, I don't want to do this without him saying yes. Now, having said that, there are lots of Carpenters tribute shows out there that are not my cup of tea.
Right.
But in my opinion, there is room for everybody in this world doing what they do, however they want to do it. And far be it from me to judge. That's not what I wanted to do. And I thought I needed some approval. You actually don't, but but I did. I just went straight to him, and I shot a couple of emails off to the management, and, this is what we're thinking of doing. And then suddenly one day, I remember exactly where I was. I was in Erie, about to do a big Christmas show with a 16-piece big band. And I came back to my hotel, opened my laptop, opened my emails, and there it was. And the stupid thing is, though, I was so young and naive, because this is when I was sort of dabbling. I never saved it, which was really stupid. Yeah. So,
problem with email.
Huh?
You don't think about it with email. If it had been a letter, you probably would have.
Yeah, and I was on Earthlink at the time, and I ended my love affair with Earthlink and went on to something else. Anyway, but yeah. So he said, "Go for it," and we did. But and I'm still in touch with his personal assistant. Every now and again, I will reach out to her and let them know what we're doing. Yeah. I let him know about Severance Hall. One of these days, he might show up.
Might show up. Maybe he'll show up on Saturday.
He's in England right now, funnily enough. That would be my dream.
Just have to do it at West End.
He would come and right, yeah.
Well, talking about England, so you are performing for a lot of folks at, I know in the summers with the orchestra, right? So you had some small venues. Talk about a band, and I'm gonna come back there. But you spent some time at West End on Broadway. Why? What was that? How did that evolve to your current show?
Yes. So I studied at music college and did solo acting, and then came out and did some, this is what everybody does, cruise ships. The cruise ships at the time were awesome. We did 10 shows, and we used to do musical theatre, really earned my singing miles. Then we did London's West End, and then Smokey Joe's Cafe was the only thing I did on Broadway. But whilst I was doing musical theatre, I realized that as great a training as it was, and it was invaluable, and if I went back, I wouldn't do it any differently, I realized that I was growing out of that mold, because when you do musical theatre, you have to, say the lines, sing the songs the way they have to be sung, in the keys they have to be sung, in the way they have to be sung. And there's a reason for that, and that's great. But I would be sitting there listening to the trolley song, for example, with my high starched collar and my high clang, clang, clang went the trolley. And I'm going, clang, clang, clang went the trolley. I was a swinger. Ding, ding, ding went the bell. I'm like this caged animal going, let me out. And it's in the wrong key. And I realized I just needed to put, in England, we would say a full stop. And I did. I put a full stop, and I just got a day job, because I knew that's what I would have to do to start again. Got a day job, and I started freelancing. And freelancing was, putting your face under somebody's nose. And I started singing for like Glenn Miller Europe and BBC Big Band and Opus One, and there's 16 musicians in each of those bands who all have their own bands, and then you start. And as I was doing that, I started collecting my own arrangements of things, which is extremely expensive. I mean, to have an arrangement written for a big band nowadays, you'd be looking at least $500 per song. That's cheap. And so I started investing in my own arrangements for big bands, so that I could then go to any big band and say, this is what I want to do. And I started doing my own arrangements of cabaret songs and first ladies of song. I kind of that's how it unrolled and unraveled. But then, of course, you have to market yourself, and you have to. I remember when I worked with my late songwriting partner, Tim Freeben, and he said, right, so we've got this cabaret, now you're going to have to say something. I said, I'm not saying anything when I'm up on stage. I can't talk. He goes, of course you have to. Well, I've a musical theatre background. I've had a libretto to read. I've had lines to learn. And he said, well, he was really my mentor. He said, just be you. Think about what you would say if you were sitting here with me. And that he sort of taught me to be confident in what I have to say about the song. But it still takes a lot of preparation. And all the shows we do, we're about to do Superstar on Saturday. And, of course, we're doing First Ladies of Song down in New Philadelphia, Ohio at the end of September. So I do a lot of research, find some interesting things, then sort of Hellenize it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's been, so now if you came to my house, my music studio is a little smaller than this room, but it is chock a block full of all my own arrangements of songs.
Yeah. We talk about big bands. You've performed with big bands.
Yes.
And notably for those of you who Blossom Cleveland Orchestra.
Oh, that's an orchestra. That's big.
That is big.
So a big band in my world is a 16-piece.
Okay.
So that would be the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra, the Columbus Jazz Orchestra, the BBC Big Band. You know, you get the 5 saxes, the 4 trombones, 4 trumpets, piano, bass, drums. And then, yes, I also have my own symphony arrangements, symphony pops arrangements. So I did the Blossom Festival Orchestra, which is part of the Cleveland Orchestra at Blossom, twice. That was, all my Christmases came at once that day. That was magical. And I just want to go around and kiss every single one of them, because I played flute and I specialize in very bad piano. I was a pretty good flute player, and I did my teaching diploma when I was 16, 17 years old. And then I stopped playing because I didn't really want to play the flute. I wanted to sing. But I so appreciate how many thousands of hours it takes to be that good on an instrument, and to have 60 of them all in one place on stage. It makes me cry every time I rehearse with an orchestra and hear them play. I was out in New York in June doing my First Ladies of Song with symphony orchestra, and they start rehearsing, and usually in rehearsal is when I get the tears out of the way, because even after all these years,
it's touching.
Yeah.
Just the way it should be, I would imagine.
Never, the novelty never wears off. We
are interviewing from the Hudson School of Music.
Yes.
And while
thank you.
and I mean, what a great place. But there was something that I thought was interesting that I kind of picked up at, and that was American Idol. Luke Bryan said, "We got to bring Helen Welch to LA, because if she's with me, I might sound like Pavarotti."
I love you, Luke.
I mean, what a great piece. But tell us, because
you've been doing your homework.
Because that American Idol was considered the most improved for that season.
Yeah,
and she was one of your students, one of your vocal students.
Yeah, I love to teach. And it's very difficult with touring to fit it in. So I teach on Mondays and Tuesdays at the Hudson School of Music. And it's so funny, even some of my adult students said to me a couple of weeks ago, "Will you be teaching on Tuesday, September the 3rd? Because you're going to do Severance Hall on Saturday." I said, "Of course I will. I need it. It's like real. And it's giving back. And I do it for so many reasons. The first really is that when I was learning, going back to what we were talking about earlier, there was nobody out there to help me do what I do. Nobody to do the material I do, nobody to teach me how to use a microphone, nobody to teach me how to talk to an audience, nobody to teach me performance skills, what to do with my hands and face when I sing, nobody to teach me about marketing, websites, reaching out to venues. You know, there's nobody doing that, or if they are, please forgive me. But
or that it was okay to do it your way, not the classical way, or the operatic way, or the musical.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And also, one of the things, I love seeing their faces when they come in, and one of my adults right now, and she's singing Tell Me on a Sunday. And so I played it, and I said, okay. And I just took it down a whole step. And I played it again. I said, sing it again. And she went, oh, that felt great. And I said, I just took it down a step. It's in the wrong key. Yeah. Oh, you can do that? And I said, would you wear a pair of trousers that were 10 sizes too big? No. Why are we singing it in the wrong key? It's not that you can't sing it. It's just in the wrong key. Now, there are certain instances where that doesn't apply. So, you know, if you want to go into musical theater and you want to audition for 6, we have to sing it in the musical's key. But if you are Beth and you want to do a cabaret in Cleveland, we're going to tailor make it. Yeah. So a lot of my adult students say, on your whiteboard, it should say, tailor-made in Helen's studio, It's not off the rack. It's tailor-made. And I love it because my students my youngest now is 12. Yeah, she told me she's going to be 13 soon. So she's 12. She's been with me since she was 8. And my oldest is probably 70 plus. And at least a third, if not more, of my 25 students are 40 or over. People think it's too late, and it's not.
And it's not.
No, we do. We're about in November. Twice a year I do what's called the Steinway Showcase. So we go to the Steinway Piano Gallery in Cleveland, which has a beautiful black box theater. My guys come in, and my students get to play with my professional band.
Wow.
And they have to pay a little bit to be a part of it because I have to pay to have the Steinway tuned, and I pay the guys. And all the students do 2 songs, but they have to talk between the songs. They have to perform the songs with a microphone. And it's like a cabaret. And they invite guests. They bring wine. How bad can it be?
Yeah.
But they get a real performing experience, not some fluorescent lit room singing somewhere over the rainbow, And I love teaching. I love it. And I consult. So if I have professional students come to me that have developed a show or are working on a show, and I might go and see the show, and then I'll write notes, and we have a Zoom meeting, or they'll send me their sizzle reel, or, I want to share and help as many people as I can because nobody's out there doing that. So
there is something honorable about not just keeping your skills, but to share them, push them out to the next generation so that people can tell their stories. Just like you're helping tell the Carpenters stories, you're helping these younger vocalist musicians tell their stories. And
they're like my little birds, I always say, and I want them to fly.
I want them to fly.
Yeah, it's really important that they fly.
Well, we appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
What is, as we're just kind of wrapping up, right? Is there something that we should know before buying tickets for your Saturday show at Severance?
That I think the lasting memory I have of this show is the response of the audiences afterwards. And they come, and I'm a very huggy person. Oops, sorry, whacked the microphone. And they'll come and they hug and they're smiling. And one of my lasting memories, I think sums it up, was this couple came to the merch table to say hi. And the lady was there, and she was with this guy who was sort of a biker, had a leather jacket on, looked kind of, roughy-tufty. And he said to me, and I'll try and do an impression of him because it was just delightful. He goes, I didn't like the Carpenters, and I only came because she wanted me to come. But I really enjoyed it. And I can't believe how amazing. And these big blobby tears dripped down his cheeks. And I said, that is the best compliment you can give me because there's so much fun and so much joy on stage. And, after all, it's the Cleveland Browns start the season the next day. So I need to kind of fill everybody up with some positivity in preparation for the Cleveland Browns season. But that probably is what I want people to know. It's full of joy and amazing musicianship and a ton of fun.
We encourage you guys to share this video because you only have a few days to be in the drawing to win 2 signed CDs. And we're going to go ahead and put in some websites, links so that they can just click over and experience the show together. And as Helen has prompted us to do, come prepared to smile, sing along, perhaps shed a couple of tears of joy along the way too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today.